Tom, great. Thanks for being with us.
It's an honor to be here. Thanks, Doug.
Appreciate you making the drive.
Yeah.
So I've been asking every candidate this because there are, I think at last count, we're coming up on about 20 on the GOP side. There's a lot of people that want this job. And I'm asking everyone why they decided to get into it. Kind of what was that moment for you where you said, I want to do this?
Yeah. Well, my moment was a process and a season, actually. I've had thoughts about and processed the concept and the idea of running for elected office, Congress specifically, for quite some period of time. It's just so deeply rooted in me, this passion for our country, this concern over where we are, and the strong desire to see it go in the direction that it needs to go. And so that weighs heavy on me, and it's something that I believe I'm well equipped to get into this kind of an environment and actually make a difference. I've got an aptitude for it, I believe, and a desire for it to help. And so specifically for my wife and I, we were thinking about and praying about running for the 14th congressional seat, and now it's been about a year and a half. A couple of folks who kind of know where our heart is and how we're wired approached us and said, at the time, it was interesting, the thought was, well, what if President Trump wins this election, and what if he pulls Marjorie into his administration? You ought to be praying about and prepping for running for that seat. And of course, that didn't happen.
Not exactly how
right,
it worked
didn't exactly,
out, right?
I know. And then, the thought was, well, maybe if she ran for governor, we still kept praying and preparing. And then, well, she didn't do that. And then, well, maybe she might run for Senate, and we still kept praying and preparing. And so we've been processing it for quite some time, and nobody could have foreseen happening what happened. But when she announced on that Friday night that she was going to resign, we'd been in a process of praying about it and thinking about it, talking with people, getting counsel from many people that are our friends that are in the political world, the elders and leaders at our church and others. And that weekend, we just really even spent some time fasting and praying about it, and Monday morning felt for sure, we're supposed to do this. And so committed to it that Monday morning. So, and very excited to be not just throwing my hat in the ring, but to be pursuing this and pursuing it with the people we get to pursue it with and in the way that we're getting to pursue it. So hoping indeed to win and to be able to serve the people of Northwest Georgia and our nation.
Yeah, I think you're a bit of an outlier in terms of having already considered a run before she resigned. Yeah. And I wanted to ask you too, were you surprised by that? Because, this relationship between Marjorie Taylor Greene and President Trump was nigh unbreakable, right, for years.
Right.
And it fell apart very quickly over things that I think people weren't even expecting to drive a wedge between the two of them. Were you surprised by the way that things ended because she was your representative?
Sure.
I don't know what, if any, your relationship with her was like, even as a constituent, but were you surprised by the way that things kind of panned out?
Of course. I think everybody was. It caught everybody off guard. Nobody could have foreseen this happening the way it happened. I've never met Marjorie or had a conversation with her, so I don't know her, but so my perceptions are probably pretty common or similar to what a lot of people's are. But yeah, certainly the loyalty and the allegiance and the closeness, at least apparent for so long, between President Trump and Marjorie was evident to all, and yeah, it's shocking to see how all that went down.
Yeah, she was certainly, I think, people use a lot of words to describe her style of politics. Firebrand is one of them, assertive is one that we hear a lot. What was your take on the way that she did politics? And, because you're seeking this job, would you do things in that same vein, or would you want to kind of make a different way for the 14th district politically?
Yeah, so I am just me, and I'm just my own person. I have a strong appreciation for anybody who would do this thing where they dare to step forward and put their name in there to run for an office and to serve in public office. And so I will not criticize any of those who've done that. And, Marjorie served, it appears to me, with all of her heart, no doubt. And so I have a lot of respect for that. My approach is just different than hers. And so what I want to say about what I know my approach will be is really not intended to be in any anyway, a commentary on what her approach is, which is different. My approach will be, what I trust will be, and I'm confident will be, a highly effective advocate and representative for the 14th District in D.C., taking the values of the 14th District and giving it an effective voice in Congress, while at the same time having a commitment to being a strong and engaged, involved, accessible congressman throughout the district, listening to the different needs in the different counties and communities across our district, and being engaged to serve and make a difference both at home and in D.C. And I know some people, one of the things that a lot of people really loved about Marjorie's approach was kind of that fiery side, you know, and she's just a aggressive go-getter, you know, fighter, which certainly I respect that as well. And so because of the contrast, I'm a pastor, people might wrongly assume, you know, that, well, if you're not kind of similar stylistically to Marjorie, maybe you're not as vigorous of a fighter. No. My view, though, of effective fighting and what I will do in serving the people of this district is fight by focusing in a disciplined way every single day, executing the core principles of pure conservatism in every issue that comes up, every policy that we have to pursue and advocate for, both in the halls of Congress and on the streets of our district. So maybe a different style of fighting, but nonetheless, you know, it's the kind of fighting I've been doing as the pastor for almost 30 years in this district. It's a servant leader type of impact and fighting, which I believe is the most powerful and effective. And so I think at this critical crossroads in our history, at this critical season in our district, I think this is the need of the day. You know, we've got a history of our country of occasionally different clergy statesmen that have actually stepped into the political arena. And I think we're at a point where that's the need of the day now as well. And so that kind of a fighting, it's a Christian, conservative, principles-based servant leadership, steady, day in and day out, disciplined, unwavering focus that is the kind of effective fighting in the district and for the district that I'm committed to.
Yeah. And I'm glad you brought that up, because I wanted to ask you how your professional experience in the pulpit plays a role in getting things done in Congress, because I think in a lot of ways they're very different, but in a lot of ways they're very similar.
That's right.
When it comes to these kitchen table issues, right, the things that you may be dealing with your congregation every day, how do you put that into practice as a congressman over being a pastor? You know, I know you mentioned, yes, we do. We have many, many examples that we can point to of people who have gone from the pulpit to the House floor, to the Senate floor. We, in fact, have one as our senator right now, in Raphael Warnock. And so multitudes of examples of how there is a direct correlation between what you deal with at church and what you deal with in the halls of Congress. How do you see those two things intersecting?
Well, I see them intersecting seamlessly, truthfully. And I don't view my run for Congress as something radically other than what I've been doing in serving the people of the district as a pastor. It's an extension of the same kind of shepherding and leading. And I think one of the things that makes my candidacy distinct from the myriad other candidates, even the other 16 Republican candidates, is the level of connectedness and in-touchness that I have and have gained over almost 30 years serving as a pastor with the needs of our community and of our people. And so those kitchen table things and what I will do in Congress, let's just take one. Maybe it's the top felt need or top expressed felt need. You know, they put it under the label of affordability. Sure. You know, these days it's the cost of living. The solution and the answer going forward is a steady application of the core fiscal principles of conservatism. And so it'd be great to say, you know what, elect me. I'm going to go to D.C. and on day one I'll introduce a bill that eliminates the national debt and fixes the economy. Okay, great, but you can't do that. But what you can do is apply in a fresh and disciplined way those core conservative principles to reducing government, reducing taxes, fighting against fraud and all of the various ways it hides and robs and steals from all of us, getting government off our back and out of our way, in essence, and then going after the national debt in a way it's kind of like triage, I think. Right now we got to stop the bleeding first, and then we got to start applying the healing, getting it reduced, which is what I've done over the course of my life as the pastor of our church. We started with 11 people in our living room, no founding denomination or parent church, and you can't do that. We're now over 700 actively engaged, $2.5 million budget annually now. You don't go from there to there by being fiscally irresponsible. It requires a daily, dedicated discipline to those core fiscal conservative principles. And so we've got now not only that budget each year, but we're about to put in a 5,000 square foot new building behind our main building, and we're able to put that in completely debt-free. And so this is my track record. These are my experiences. And so what's needed in Congress is somebody who knows how to put those into practice one day at a time without being distracted, without being deterred or detoured by other shiny objects that are vying for your attention.
Yeah, hold that thought, right? Because you talk about deficit reduction and cutting waste and fraud, right?
Yeah.
I mean, we've seen attempts from both parties to try and do this, right? We have deficit hawks on both sides.
Yeah.
The Doge efforts, for
right.
example, right? We saw that while those cut some things short term and brought some money back into the budget, the deficit nonetheless still increased year over year.
Yeah.
And so are you concerned that there are, because you very well could be joining this body very soon, are you concerned that there isn't a real appetite in Congress for actual deficit reduction and for actual waste and fraud elimination that maybe you could kickstart as a member?
I do have those concerns, and I do have the thought, the notion, the vision that indeed that could be one of the significant roles I have the opportunity to play, is coalescing a commitment and a conviction to just how important this is. We can't just talk about it on the campaign trail. We've got to make it happen when we govern. And that, again, I believe makes me a unique candidate in this process. We've got, several of the candidates that are politicians, and maybe this is just a part of their political ambition to move into this role. We've got others that are young, and it's great that they're running, but they've got no real track record or experience to be able to bring to bear. I think my track record and my perspective here are unique to bring to this, and I am a coalition builder. I am a collaboration building, problem-solving guy, and we need that in Congress, and we need that from the 14th District. A congressman who can go and win others over, which is what a pastor does. And so I don't take credit for anyone's conversion. That's God's doing. But that's the whole business that we're in. Is seeing lives change, seeing opinions change, seeing beliefs and lifestyles changed to know and follow God. This is the whole function of a church and a pastor that I've done. So I believe firmly that that's what will be required of me. So we can vote for, in this district, a congressperson who's going to go up and kind of make a case for the right things to do, or we can vote for a congressman who can go up and actually make it happen, win people over, build a coalition, build a movement of conviction that really will be able to make some of the changes that are critical to our continuation, our ability to continue as a nation that's free and prosperous.
Yeah. As I understand it, kind of the bedrock of your platform is faith-based policy. Right. And you, by all means, correct me if I'm wrong on any of this, but how do you see an application for faith-based policy when it comes to more kitchen table issues, more widespread issues that may even extend beyond people's faith? We already talked a little bit about affordability, housing costs, education, healthcare. How do you apply your time, not only as a pastor, but as someone who is very close to their faith, two things that affect everyone of any denomination, any religion.
Yeah, so I think the application is universal, honestly, here to all of the policies and the principles that drive those policies that we'll have to deal with as people in Congress, as leaders of our community and our nation, because the principles that have formed us as the United States of America, I believe they're conservative principles, but I'm a conservative's conservative. My label for myself would be a pure conservative, which to me means a biblically based conservative, because these principles that our nation was founded on and built and preserved on over the course of our unique history, they're rooted in the Bible. They're rooted in Judeo-Christian understandings, everything from even just the way we say we're a country of laws and the rule of law, but it goes beyond that too. It's rooted in, even as it was framed up in the Declaration of Independence, that we start with our understanding that the rights we have as human beings come from God, not from government. Government's role is limited. It's to guard certain of those rights, but it certainly doesn't give them. And there's a great respect for every human being, and that comes out of just the belief that every human being, and again, those that do believe in God or don't, every single one, we understand, being created in the image of God, there's a sanctity about that. There's a holiness in every human being that needs to be respected, guarded, provided for. The foundational principles of kind of blind justice, but also, as it relates economically and otherwise, that it keeps government restricted and not only provides and respects freedom, autonomy of every single human being, dignity, but that also comes with responsibility. And so some of our policies and some of how we've gotten ourselves in some of the predictions, or some of the conundrums we found ourselves in, the predicaments we found ourselves in, is when government starts to usurp the rightful role, and again, this is biblically established, that the individual has. If government starts doing for individuals what individuals need to do for themselves, it messes those individuals and everybody else up in the process, or families. That the family is the next source for meeting the needs of human beings after the individual, not the government. And then after the family, it's the community, primarily, ideally, the faith community. And when the government steps in and does things for people or families or communities that they need to do for themselves, it just messes stuff up. It makes more problems instead of less. I love the old Reagan quote, that the scariest words in the human language are when somebody shows up knocking at your door saying, "I'm from the government and I'm here to help." It botches it. So that plays out across all facets of our culture and our society. Somebody who understands the rooting of those principles. So it's not, and I know people sometimes go, "Oh, you're a pastor. Does that mean you want everybody to be a Christian?" No. A faith-based approach to this means exactly what I just articulated, that we understand the principles and where they came from and why they're so significant, and we put those into practice, and that benefits everybody, including, people whose faith doctrines are radically different than what I believe, the Bible teaches. This is the country where, a lot of other countries say they respect freedom of religion. This is the freest for people to believe what they believe, and that's because of our Judeo-Christian biblical roots. So, yeah.
I'd be remiss not to ask you too about policy that you have around members of the military.
Yeah.
I know you have many in your family.
Right.
And certainly, with there being a large presence of military folks in your potential constituency, do you have policy around not just financially helping veterans as you would any other constituent, presumably, but specifically to VA issues that I know we struggle with? We obviously, our VA secretary is a Georgia guy himself, and so you would think that would be an easy method of coordination, but certainly we hear all the time from veterans who are unhappy with the care they're getting, unhappy with the lack of attention that certain agencies should be giving them, and so I did want to give you a chance to kind of talk about your policy around vets.
Yeah, it's got to be. We've got to honor those who served to the maximum effectiveness and efficiency. So my father was a career Army officer. I was born at Fort Bragg, North Carolina, Womack Army Hospital. My dad's an 82nd Airborne, jumped out of an airplane the day I was born. So those are not related incidents.
Good, yeah, that's good.
And left for Vietnam 3 months after I was born. So we lived on Army bases growing up. He was a career Army guy until he retired. I was raised on the motto of West Point, where my dad went: duty, honor, country. We can't have, we won't, it wouldn't be possible for us to have a representative who values the commitment and sacrifice of our veterans more than me. My son is an Air Force pilot. And it's interesting to have conversations with him. Later this spring, he'll get promoted to captain, and to have that inside, firsthand view of what it's actually like. And there's things that would relate to how we take care of the needs of our active duty personnel, but then certainly as part of my driving heartbeat to provide great customer service, constituent services for the entire district. Take that to the next level as it relates to our veterans. It's just something we need to do as a nation, something that's central to my heart. And whatever those specific things are, again, part of what I think makes my track record distinct is this is who I am, this is how I've lived, is listening really well. Listening on into the point of understanding. And then advocating relentlessly for what needs to be done to do the right thing in the right way. So that's my approach. That will be my approach to honoring and serving our veterans.
Yeah. Just politically, right?
Yeah.
Straight up. There are a lot of candidates in this race. We've already mentioned there's about 20 of them. Mm-hmm. As one of those candidates, do you wish that maybe the Republican Party in this district and in different parts of this district had kind of come together to maybe coalesce a little bit more around a single candidate? Because you guys could find yourself in a position where you're almost hurting yourselves in this primary race, and then there's no coming back from that. You know, does the Republican Party in the 14th district need to kind of get on the same page? Because there's a huge regrouping now that needs to happen after 5 years of Congresswoman Greene. Things were pretty solidified. She was the person. Where do you see the Republican Party needing to go now in the 14th district, now that she is kind of out of the picture?
Yeah, good question. I understand theoretically, hypothetically, and then strategically, it's a very understandable thought. Like, well, we need to all come together, get our ducks in a row, and kind of get behind one candidate. And yet, there is a dynamic that's playing out here, and it makes a lot of people kind of nervous or anxious about the theoretical potential outcomes for this very conservative district. You could end up with a Democrat theoretically, going to serve in Washington, whatever the theoreticals are. But here's where I love your question, because I think it is something that I want people to know about my convictions. What I mean by when I say I'm a pure conservative is that pure conservatives really value the free market dynamics and process as a solution on so many fronts across the society. But the struggle sometimes with embracing a commitment to the free market process is it feels out of our control.
Sure.
It feels like the wild, wild west. It feels sometimes inefficient. But the benefits that come are worth it, because otherwise we, as people call ourselves conservatives, end up functioning as authoritarian even in just our political party dynamics. We got to stick to who we are. And trust the process, even with the inherent risks or theoretical challenges that we can recognize. And so that's why I think the best approach here is to do exactly what's happening. Let each of us run, get our messaging out, and be clear on it. And yes, I'm one of 17 Republicans who's qualified, but my message is this. I believe I'm one of one when you really look at it. I'm the only pastor in this race. I'm the only one with that depth of perspective and experience to bring to bear in my candidacy. I believe I have a unique vantage point on the real battle and its nature that we are in. We all know it, we feel it. We're at a crossroads in our nation. We are in a battle for the soul and the future of our country. I believe I have a unique perspective on the nature of that battle, the battle beneath the battle. It's spiritual as much or more than it is political. And I believe I have a unique perspective on the path forward. I see it. It is a fresh and disciplined application of those core, pure conservative principles in a disciplined and unwavering way, those principles we were founded on, refocusing there. And I believe I have a unique track record of this high-impact servant leadership for nearly 30 years in this district that people can look at and say, we know what we're going to get out of his leadership in Washington, and that's the leadership we need. So yeah, there's 17 running, but let's trust the process. And my message is, I'm one of 17 and one, but I think I'm one of one in this particular race for this time.
After what happened, the way things kind of broke down with the president and with Congresswoman Greene, it kind of showed the importance, I think, of a relationship between a congressman or woman and the president. No one was closer in that particular scenario. And we know that, certainly President Trump does things in his own way.
Right.
We've seen the holding up of funding for aid programs for education because of rifts that have been created between himself and others. How would you see your role?
Yeah, and that's a great question as well, and leads to another reason I believe I'm the right candidate for this time in this opportunity. And that is, it takes someone who understands how to work with people that are different. Of course, my background is football, played football and coached football before God called me into ministry. And Congress and working with our leadership, both legislatively and in the executive branch, it requires some skill and some knowledge, some ability to work as a part of a team and to kind of understand those different human dynamics, communication dynamics, and be able to be respectful of them and be able to navigate those, not compromising convictions and commitments, but knowing how to work with different personalities, different people, and to advance the needs of the district and the needs of the nation. So I think I'm the guy for this time, for this environment to step into and give that kind of leadership.
Yeah. One more question for you about policy on education specifically, because we've been hearing from the Speaker of the House this year at the Capitol that literacy is going to be his number one priority. I think it's something that is affecting school districts across the state of Georgia.
Yeah.
And as is funding. We also now see this push in Georgia to eliminate property taxes, which over the next couple of years could be annually $5 billion in losses, mostly for school systems. Right. And so, as someone who, you're a family man.
Yeah.
I'm sure you work with younger members of your constituency as
absolutely.
well.
Yeah.
And so, are you concerned about the direction that Georgia is going in, both when it comes to kids and their learning, and also the money that's flowing into these school systems? I will also note too that while education has kind of taken a turn here in Georgia with a lot of money going to private schools, homeschooling through the voucher program that we saw at the state level, it would certainly be incumbent on the next member of Congress from the 14th district to make sure that the state schools are thriving. Right. And so, do you have concerns about maybe your policy conflicting with what's going on at the state level?
No, I don't have concerns about that, but to your point, it is a state level issue, and that's a conviction of mine too, and I believe that's a descriptor of pure conservatism. You want local government over distant government. You want small government over large government. So taking education out of the hands of the federal government, I support 100%. So this is a state issue, it's a local issue. That's where it should be. We get the best education for our children when the people closest to the children and their families are engaged and making the decisions and setting the tone. So in general, that's my belief. And so as a congressman, my support and engagement with our state legislature will be active and vibrant. I want to do what I can to advocate for them, assist in any way I can. But you're right, the education of our children is supreme in our ability as a nation, as communities across Northwest Georgia to thrive, to have a workforce capable of stepping into hopefully what will be increased and better opportunities in the days ahead. So yeah, it's critical issues. I'm not of the mindset that says you have to choose between supporting public education or other alternatives. I'm not of that mindset. In fact, good leaders aren't of that mindset. When you hear somebody kind of going down that road you could do this on a variety of issues. Well, you can't be strong on this, provide money for public education, and have a school choice as what you feature, and the power is in the hands of the parents. No, I don't believe that at all. Good leaders know how to do both, find solutions for the win-win, and so I'll be actively engaged in that. And then, just like everything, back to the free market principles, the same applies in education. Options, competition serves the end users, which is the students, the children, and their families, better. And there's ways to have strong support for public schools, which is critical, and provide the competition that serves the end users well as well. So that's my heartbeat on education. I've been a teacher. I taught management at Kennesaw State University. I was a teacher at University of West Alabama. I was Livingston University at the time when I was coaching football. My mother was a career public school educator and administrator. My brother just retired from coaching and teaching English at the public school. So, yeah. And my wife's worked at a Christian school. And we've had some time even homeschooling our kids. So we've got experience and knowledge of the options that are out there, and I'm thankful that there are great options.
Yeah, hence my question. I appreciate all of that. Well, Tom, thanks for joining us. We appreciate it very much.
Doug, thank you for having me.
Excellent.
It's great to be here.
Thank you.